I remember when I started sharing my faith online. The call to do it wasn't loud or dramatic, but it was very persistent. It stayed with me in the quiet moments, in the middle of the night, ordinary days, like it was just there, and it was scary. Because this was unfamiliar territory, and truth be told, it was going to be uncomfortable. But I knew it had to be done. I didn't have all the answers, I just had a sense that obedience mattered more than certainty. And that's where Genesis 12 opens up. It's such a call to the unknown. The Lord had said to Abram, "Leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family, and go to the land that I will show you." God doesn't give Abram a destination, just direction. And yet Abram goes. Imagine packing up your things and going somewhere where you have no idea how to get to. You have no idea about the people, and you're leaving your entire family behind. And yet Abram goes. This act of obedience becomes the beginning of a divine promise. God says, "I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt. All the families on earth will be blessed through you." Then in verses 7 through to 9, we get a glimpse of Abram's faith in action. As Abram journeys through the land, the Lord appears to him again and says, "I will give this land to your descendants." And Abram built an altar there and dedicated it to the Lord who had appeared to him. After that, Abram traveled south and set up camp in the hill country, with Bethel to the west and Ai to the east. There he built another altar and dedicated it to the Lord, and he worshipped the Lord. Then Abram continued traveling south by stages towards the Negev. As Abram journeys through the land, the Lord appears to him again and says, "I will give this land to your descendants." And in response, Abram builds an altar to the Lord, not once, but twice. As he moves through the land, he pauses to worship, to acknowledge the God who called him out, and mark those moments with sacred gratitude. Wherever he goes, he leaves behind not just footprints, but altars. Reminders that this journey isn't just about geography, but relationship. Abram is learning that the journey of faith is built on consistent worship, not constant clarity. But obedience doesn't mean everything always goes smoothly. A famine hits, and Abram flees to Egypt, and that's where fear takes over. He tells a half-truth, that Sarai is his sister. While technically she's his half-sister, Abram hides the full truth out of fear that the Egyptians would kill him to take her. Pharaoh does take her, and serious consequences follow. But God intervenes and protects Sarah. But the story is a sobering reminder. Half-truths are still compromises. There are no such things as white lies. Nothing. A lie is a lie, and a half-truth is close enough to a lie. When fear replaces faith, we often try to manipulate situations instead of trusting God. But here's the beauty. God remains faithful. He doesn't revoke his promise. He doesn't shame Abram. Instead, he allows him to return, to restart, and to worship. So Abram left Egypt and traveled north into the Negev, along with his wife and Lot and all that they owned. Abram was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. From the Negev, they continued traveling by stages towards Bethel, and they pitched their tents between Bethel and Ai, where they had camped before. Remember? Chapter 12, just up there. This was the same place where Abram had built the altar, and there he worshipped the Lord again. He is to be worshipped, my friends, not because of our performance, but because of his mercy, patience, and grace. And one of the most comforting truths we see here is that God's promises are not cancelled by our mistakes. Abram's detour to Egypt was driven by fear, not by faith. His deception almost cost him and others dearly, and yet God continues to lead him, to bless him, and to enable him to grow. As we go on in chapter 13, we see a more grounded Abram. After conflict arises between his herders and Lot's, Abram gives Lot first choice of land. This time, he doesn't grasp for control. He trusts that God will provide no matter the outcome. This is spiritual growth, and that's available to us too. Here's our prayer focus for today: to learn from Abram's missteps, to walk in faith when the path is unclear, and to embrace the truth that we too are children of promise. And that's a term I always struggle with. Like, what does that even mean, children of promise? In Romans chapter 9, Paul is explaining God's faithfulness to Israel's promises, despite most Jews rejecting Jesus. And in that chapter, we get a beautiful insight into why all who come to Christ are considered children of the promise. Has God failed to fulfill his promise to Israel? No, for not all who are born into the nation of Israel are truly members of God's people. Being descendants of Abraham doesn't make them truly Abraham's children. For the scriptures say, Isaac is the son through whom your descendants will be counted, though Abraham had other children too. So not everyone born into the nation of Israel is truly part of the covenant. Being physically descended from Abraham doesn't automatically make someone a recipient of God's spiritual inheritance. It's kind of like today. Not everyone who's called a Christian is truly following Christ. In Kenya, over 70% of the population identifies as Christian. But when you look closely, something's just off. You look at the way we speak, the way we treat one another, even how we live. You start to realize that something doesn't quite add up. There's a gap between the label and the lifestyle. The name alone isn't what saves us, and that's what Paul is saying here. It's not the outward appearance or even the cultural identity. It's whether our hearts have been changed by Christ, whether we are walking in his promise. He goes on to say, this means that Abraham's physical descendants are not necessarily children of God. Only the children of the promise are considered to be Abraham's children. And here's what that means. Both Ishmael and Isaac were sons of Abraham, but only one received the covenant blessing. Ishmael was born through human effort, through the flesh, but Isaac was born through supernatural promise from God. He represents those who are born again through faith, not just physical descent, and that's us. If you belong to Christ, you are like Isaac, born not just of the flesh, but of faith in God's promise. And Galatians also goes on to say, now that you belong to Christ, you are the true children of Abraham. You are his heirs, and God's promise to Abraham belongs to you. So if you've trusted Christ, you are part of Abraham's spiritual family, an heir of the covenant, wrapped in grace and destined for a greater inheritance. On this day, my blanket color was purple for the promise, a nod to both Abram's return to worship and God's unwavering faithfulness. May we learn from Abram, trust like Abram, and when we fall short, return like Abraham. Remember, he is to be worshipped, not just in victory, but in every step of the journey. Let every stitch remind you, you are chosen, you are part of the promise, and even when your steps falter, you can always return and worship the one who never lets go.